be with the counselors of the year. We had our last one snowed out. Wouldn't have been a surprise if this one would have been snowed out this year, so thanks for coming. We weren't totally sure like what direction to go with this one, since the last one was on high school success plan, and then typically the last coffee of the counselors of the year, we talk a lot about transition, whether it's transition 8th grade to high school, or high school to college, or just world of life beyond high school. There are a lot of similarities in those transitions, and so we're going to kind of blend a little bit of both into this, but I kind of went with the same title for the one that was going to be in March. And then what we mostly wanted to do today was kind of roll out to you something really exciting that will be rolled out next year to your sons and daughters that has a lot to do with high school success, and probably one of the bigger groundbreaking endeavors that we are undertaking as a high school, and will continue to do so for many years. So I've basically included that in this presentation, and we'll spend a bit of time on that because it's something that you're going to be hearing a lot about. And yesterday, or on Monday for our staff development, or professional development day, half of the day was devoted to this new program. So I figured you'll get a sneak preview before any other parents or students. We always try to give you a little carrot for being, a little reward for being here. So then we'll just do Q&A, which is usually what ends up happening and is kind of the fun part anyway. So there might be a couple other counselors dropping in, but we, as I feel like I always say, we have a lot of things going on in the building. I also invited Dr. Mack to pop in if she could, because she is actually the administrator that is leading and spearheading the new Leader in Me endeavor is what it's called. So if she pops in, awesome. Mr. Mader's out of the building, and so she may not be able to. But I think you probably would agree that a consistent theme that not only are you hearing a lot about in the media or just in talking to each other, but also in the presentations that we give at school, not just to parents, but in all of the ones that we have in our aviator bell meetings and other times that the administrators are talking with our students. Probably one of the biggest components of high school success, or just life success, is that balance, and we're seeing a lot of attention given to that just because of so many mental health struggles, issues, challenges that kids and adults are having, and a lot of it comes down to basically finding that balance between what their future plans are and the colleges that they think they want to go to, or that they think you want them to go to, and what they're capable of, and then finding ways to also be able to do the other things that are really important as they develop and go through life and experience a lot of other things outside of the actual academic part of high school. So this is on here not only as a reminder to all of us about balance, but also just to kind of continue reiterating that that is a very constant message that we have in almost every presentation that we do in small groups with the kids or talk to them about individually. So one of the biggest factors is, I think, and I think we would all agree as a counseling team, is realistic rigor. And we know that rigor is kind of in the top 3 of what colleges look for in addition to their GPA and test scores. It's how did they challenge themselves in high school, and they're only measured against the high school they go to. So if they go to a school that doesn't offer 20-some AP courses or different levels of curriculum, they're not compared against some other school that they didn't go to. The college looks at the school profile and what was offered at their school, and then what did they take advantage of. It's really important, and again, another very consistent theme with us is that we tell our students that means something different to every student. And when you get in that game of comparing yourself to your friend who's taking this many AP classes or this level of, you know, the honors and accelerated and whatever, that it's like yoga, you know, it's you versus you. It's not you versus your friends or your friendship circle, but it's really hard to convince them otherwise of that. And so a consistent message from you as their parent and us as counselors, we hope helps, as well as their teachers. But realistic rigor is basically choosing courses that do challenge them and they also do find interesting and they also do have the time to do the work that is required as those levels of courses change or are different based on the level. And so when we talk about rigor in front of the kids, we don't say you have to take the hardest classes in the school or you have to take at least 3 AP classes before you graduate. We very clearly state that if you take 0 AP classes, you will still get into college. And if you don't take any honors classes, you will still get into college, and that there is a place for everyone. You might have to start your path a little bit differently, or it might not be that one school that you always thought you wanted to go to or were going to go to, but there's a place and there's a way. And so rigor doesn't mean you have to take the hardest. Rigor means what challenges you. If you're breezing through with straight A's and you don't ever really have any homework and you are never breaking an academic sweat, it's time to start dipping your toe into maybe something that's a little bit more challenging. We don't want that to happen for them the very first time when they are away from the nest. And you've heard me say before, like we want them to face that adversity when they're home in their comfy little confines of suburbia and warmth and food and support from you, not when they're living in a dorm room that's the size of their current bathroom and, you know, with a person that they might not like so much living in that room with them, and then everything just seems a lot worse.
And can I answer that real fast? I always tell students that we want them to be slightly uncomfortable. If they're pushing themselves academically in some way, shape, or form, then they're learning and they're growing as a student. I tell students all the time that if they come in and they're not really happy with their grades, or they say the classes are easy and they're getting B's, and maybe they're in great classes for them, well then I'm challenging them to, okay, so it's easy and you're getting B's, so let's push for the A. Or you're getting C's and it's easy, well it doesn't look easy because your grades don't show that it's easy, so show us, let's strive to get the B's, or let's strive to get a higher grade. So just know it's really individualized for each student, but we try to work with them to find out where their balance is so they're not overwhelmed. So many students tend to do too much or think that they have to do too much. But then also for those students who think it's easy and they're not doing anything and they're not spending any time on homework, well, okay, are your grades showing us that? Or can you do a little bit more to really make it look like your class is easy because you're getting all A's instead of B's and maybe C's? Because that happens all the time. I'll have a student come in, I'll ask them about the grades. It's so easy. I just don't even have to do anything. Well, it looks like you're not doing anything. So just know we have those conversations too. We figure out, where it is for each student. We want them to figure out the right balance for them and the right level of challenge. It's not too much, but so that they're still working and learning something and growing and figuring out how do you ask for help? How do you should have to go to the help center or after school focus or something at some point in a class. That's the goal, is that you figure that out, like Ann was saying, so that you know it now, you develop those skills for success in high school when it's safer than when you're in college and have to really figure it out.
Right.
So.
Right. My favorite though is the student who's getting B's and C's and they're just like, I'm just bored.
Yep.
I'm not challenged at all. I'm just bored. All right, so let me get this straight. So you're only going to get A's and B's when you're like, when you're not bored. Gotcha. But like what Megan was saying, and it's part of that transition part of this presentation, but also part of reality, is that you know, the one thing to remember is that a lot of your kids have never had to ask for help. And so when they're maybe coming from the 8th grade to the 9th grade, they're not used to asking for help, and all of a sudden they're here. You know, we try to do things to help transition them and familiarize them, but they might have breezed through K through 8. And when they leave here and they go to college, you know, really, really, really smart kids think that, and we talked about it in the PTO meeting this past week about the new writing lab. You know, they're to not make it necessarily a help center, because if it says help center, a lot of kids who could really benefit from going there won't go there because they think, well, I don't need help. I have A's in English. I'm a good writer, you know. But to help have those conversations with them if they are leaving for college, that resources, using your resources and finding out what they are, and going to a math lab or a writing lab isn't a sign of weakness or, you know, your intellectual ability. It's actually a sign of strength, and being able to advocate for yourself is what's going to push you ahead of a lot of other kids. And I've had to have those same conversations as a mom that I have with students as their counselor or as an educator in general. And so I think preparing them for that and having those conversations, a 2015 survey of, I'm not sure exactly like the pool that was surveyed, but it was college students. But the survey was basically about their overconfidence that they have going into college because they haven't really, you know, experienced a lot of struggle. And so they're incredibly confident in their ability to just be fine and achieve at the same level when they go to college, and there's a lot of things they haven't thought about, like finding help if they need it, or how are you going to get along with somebody that's your roommate that you maybe don't get along with, and what happens when you're homesick, and what happens when, you know, you get that C or whatever, or you see your college GPA and they don't weight your GPA. So like a 3.8 sounds like horrendous, you know, when you're used to having a 4.4. So preparing them for some of those things, managing money, managing their time, and just finding and looking for resources on campus when they need it, and not just bailing. So when we talk to kids about realistic rigor, or when teachers talk to them on teacher recommendation day, or when you talk to them as they are planning their schedule, I mean, if they can answer yes to these questions when they're trying to determine their rigor, or is it right? You know, am I interested? Is it something where I've already had success? Will I be able to commit the time and effort, and taking into account all of my other stuff, can I be successful in this course? And if it's yes to all of those, or yes to 3 of them, they're probably in the right place as they're trying to make some of those choices. We always have kids who at the beginning of the year, they'll start emailing us about 2 or 3 weeks before school starts to say, hey, you know, I've just been doing a lot of deep soul searching over the summer, and I'd really like to drop AP Government and AP whatever AP that had summer work in it that I didn't get to and that I didn't do. I just, you know, I'm going in a different direction in my life, and I've, you know, seen the light, and I'm really not interested in that course anymore, nor that I do the summer work, but they never tell us that part. So as an FYI, we aren't making those schedule changes anymore at the beginning of the year for classes that especially had summer work that wasn't finished. So also, public service announcement, reminder, May 15th is the last day for schedule changes, and so that's coming up. So just a little aside. So, sorry, that's hard to read, and didn't really have the dramatic effect it did on my computer when I was making it, but wow, underwhelming. But always the big 5 in terms of what colleges are looking for, and I really hate that phrase. The older I get and the more I do this, I really hate the phrase, like, what are the colleges looking for? Well, you know, what are you looking for? You know, and then let's talk about what schools might be good for that. But, you know, it still remains, you know, high school GPA as being like the biggest factor, and a lot of schools will just take your GPA once they get your transcript, and they'll take out all of the little outliers or electives and whatever, and they'll recalculate your GPA on just your core academic and maybe foreign language credits. But don't get bogged down or worry about that because they don't always tell us if they're doing it. We don't know when they do that. It's those mysterious backroom meetings that we've talked about where they're making major decisions about your child's life. No big deal. Rigor, ACT, SAT scores, activities, extracurriculars, and letters of recommendation. Kids will come into our offices all the time and they'll say, I don't feel like I'm doing enough outside of school. What should I do? What do the colleges want to see? What should I do? What should I be doing? I don't feel like I'm doing enough. You know, and the answer to that question has really evolved over the years too. It used to be there was a time where it was like you have to do everything. And now it's more a time of what do you really like, what are you interested in, and how much did you dig into that? Like how much commitment or effort did you put into one or two or three things or one thing versus trying to do a little bit in a lot of places. So we actually kind of downplay this a little bit with our students because it's more of a what do you like to do? You know, what kinds of things interest you? Whatever. Well, I'm in this club and I'm in that club and I'm in this club and I play this and I do that and I feel like I need to be doing more. Well, let's talk about some of those things. Like there isn't a recipe, there isn't a magic formula. Megan, anything to add to that or any of these?
What you were saying when you have students that are like, I need to be doing more. It's like, well, how much time do you have to give to something else? You know, because they list 10 things they're already doing, and it's like, well, when else are you going to do these things that we're going to magically come up with? And I think that's challenging, but I think that conversation is helpful because a lot of times they are just doing the sports, doing the clubs and different things, and they're not thinking about what they really like. Sometimes they're just doing because they
They're
saw
just
it.
doing because they've always been doing.
Right. And so really getting them to restructure that thought on like, okay, so what do I really like? Students will say, because we talk about internships, it's like, okay, find me an internship. It's like, what do you want an internship in? What do you want to explore? You know, and it can be basic as like math or science, but they don't even know. I just know I need an internship because then I can put it on my resume and the college will like it. So those conversations are still helpful because I think it gives the students a little bit of perspective to think about, but they don't always know and they are very stuck in that. I need to do more, I need to add more.
I need to do community service just to have volunteer hours. That's usually the big one I always hear. And I think we all think volunteering in community service is amazing. But I think students need to do it for the right reason, not just because it's something to check off their list or to add to a application. So when a student says I want to do volunteering, my first question is, if it's a student that's already doing a lot of work, I was talking to a student not too long ago who doesn't really have any free time. Their free time, if they're not already spent in their numerous activities already, is in homework and schoolwork.
I like that that's their free time.